Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MedTech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technology. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And we're your hosts of the show.
So, today on the MedTech Impact Podcast, we're delighted to be joined by Charles Gellman, CEO and Co-Founder of HiDo Health. Charles, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Very excited to be on the show today.
Well, Charles, you've already pointed out, you have brought a pretty much A game to your background there, because you have a pretty cool piece of equipment sitting over your right-hand shoulder, which we're going to talk about. For anyone watching the video, it's pretty cool to see. So definitely excited to learn more. Anyone listening in, they're going to find out all the exciting things that HiDo Health do. But as we kick off every show, we like to tell the listeners, what is that big problem that HiDo Health is looking to solve?
So HiDo's mission and vision is to eliminate medication errors from happening in the home. That is it. So if you're watching on video, you can see it over my shoulder. Usually it drowns out my face, so you're not distracted about how I look today. If you're listening to this, you just have to imagine a miniaturized R2-D2 unit shining in the background.
Okay, so medication adherence, is that what I'm hearing? You're trying to solve the problem around that?
That's what most people believe. This is not a medication adherence device. This alters patients' behaviors in the home and turns the light on for providers like nurses and clinicians to understand those behaviors in the home so they can intervene when people deviate their medications.
Okay, so before we go too deep into the solutions, I know I'm going to get a look here from Kyle thinking about this. So let's talk about the problem a little bit more. So what is the problem we see today in the current standard of care around medication delivery?
Well, a lot of the major problems is based upon providers and clinicians having to take the best information that is presented in front of them by the patients. So if a patient or a loved one goes in and they talk to a doctor or a nurse, they ask them whether or not they're taking their medications. But can those patients actually recall whether or not they're taking them, when they're taking them, as needed, when needed, or are they mismatching the medications? Are they taking too many at once? Are they taking none? So the providers have to make educated or scientific guesses on that information based upon people that are unfortunately unreliable with that information.
And so I'm guessing there's a second follow-up to that. So one is just how much of a particular treatment are you taking or drug are you taking? But then as you point out, maybe there's something sort of more detailed in the, how that affects the patient. Is that something you're looking to solve as well?
Yeah, so what we're really solving is knowing the exact behaviors that are happening in the home. So when you take medication, what's unique about the HiDo device is it has remote video direct observation therapy. So somebody can physically see whether the medications are taken at the right time, the right dosage, the right frequency, and the right count. So there's no longer a guessing game on what type of patient behaviors happen in the home. In addition to that, patients really are the major crux in the healthcare system. A lot of the people that are listening to this or watching this, the reason why healthcare is broken in the United States and worldwide is because much of the burden is placed on patients in the home. If you can eliminate or unravel some of that burden by automating much of the medication consumption and dosage that takes place in the home, then you can finally stabilize chronic disease state. And that is really what we're trying to alter for right now and in the future of healthcare.
So, Charles, I guess I'm lucky where I don't have to take a bunch of medication, but on occasion when I do, I'm only familiar with, knowing that I need to take it. I go over, I pop open the bottle, I take whatever I need to take, and I'm on my way. I guess I'm not familiar with other products out there, other technologies that are helping with adherence and, more importantly, making sure that these behaviors of how and when people are taking medication, what's out there today?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So pill bottles really haven't undergone any major technological advance for, 100 years. So we get our pills in the same form factor that we've always gotten our pills. But the way we take our pills is either we are sorting and sifting the medications Monday through Sunday, so everyone's aware of the plastic container. But again, that burden is placed on the patients in the home.
Okay.
Whether or not they go and take those medications is a whole nother story. Now, as a society and a pharmacy distribution model, the United States is fantastic. Over 6 billion prescriptions go out every single year. So that is, it gives the ability by distributing that much volume that all of those patients are making many medication errors and nothing is accounted for. So the technology that goes into the different types of pill dispensing or pill consumption recordings stems from a mobile app device, could be a text reminder, could be an actual device that dispenses, but nothing has really automated the entire approach to how we engage, to how we consume, to tracking the behaviors that happen in the home. And that is where we're at a completely different level of what's currently in the market, what's been put together in the market, and where we should be in the future.
Okay, Richard, we got to get into it. I can tell Charles is itching to tell us exactly how the technology works, because it clearly sounds like what you've developed is something that is far more intuitive, a really smart piece of technology that's collecting a bunch of data, that's helping patients take their medication better, more effectively, more consistently, what have you. Tell us about the technology now, and I want to hear everything. I want to hear how it works and how it's different from what's out there today. Exactly.
Well, first off, I appreciate the tee up. If I had a mic that I could drop, I would drop it right now, because I don't know if I need to say anything else, because you set me up for the big golf swing. So, what is unique about the HiDo device is that we do things in a different manner. This is designed by patients for patients. So instead of looking at the engineering specs of what we wanted to build, we asked the public of what they wanted. And what they wanted is they wanted to be held accountable for their actions in the home. They also wanted to know, or the caregivers wanted to know, what behaviors were happening in the home and document that accordingly. And when you start with those specific specifications from an engineering perspective, it alters everything that you do. So what's unique about this device is we've used the same pill bottle, but the device itself knows the medication name, dosage, frequency, and count of the medications. So when the pill bottle is inserted in the back of the HiDo device, it auto recognizes the information. So people that might have memory issues or can't recall, all of that lifting is done for them. When they walk up to the device, it has 2 different cameras. It uses Face ID, so they don't need a passcode. It'll unlock based upon the person that's supposed to get those medications. Then they press one button, touchscreen or button, depending upon their technological sophistication, will dispense the medications according to how they're prescribed, and then they consume them, eliminating many of the errors that typically happen in the home. What you have created now is the stabilization of chronic disease, which leads to a higher adherence threshold, which now you can actually prescribe or deprescribe medications out or titrate down dosages, because they're finally taking their medications according to how they're prescribed.
Sure. And I mean, I would imagine, and Richard, like when we look at medication bottles, typically it tells you to take X amount of medication over X amount of days, and then it has you maybe slowly start to reel back from maybe 2 pills to 1 pill, what have you. Charles, it sounds like, that's what your system's doing, but I have a lot of questions here. Does your technology, does your product, does it require its own medication bottles?
So the first thing that we did, and this was a major mistake, or we thought we were on the right path, is why don't we make our own individual cartridges for the device? Because then you can maximize the space. The second we went into the mail order pharmacies and they said that we have our own proprietary customized cartridges, they said no.
Yeah.
So we went back to the drawing board, because
Yeah.
we use off-the-shelf pill bottles that
Perfect.
are already used in existence that cost fraction of a pennies. And what we do differently is that the cap that goes on the bottle is placed in the device. So off-the-shelf pill bottles
Yep.
with the cap
Yep.
in the device. So you maintain the sterility of those medications, and you can distribute them from mail order pharmacy to the home, to the device, to consumption. So there's a chain of custody that we have with HiDo that doesn't exist in the market because nobody physically knows when they're consuming the actual medication. Again, we do a fantastic job distributing 6 billion medications a year. What we do very poorly is the last mile of actual consumption, which is in the home with the patients.
How does the system know what medication is in there and how often the patient needs to take the medication?
Yeah, so on the prescribing label, you have medication name, dosage, frequency, and count. So we take the same information within the pharmacy information system and put it on an embedded RFID chip within the cap. So the system knows when the bottle is in the device, it reads it. It knows exactly the medication timing, if it's morning, if it's evening, afternoon, how many you need, which medications. And then we have a couple sensors within the device so we know which pills are dropping. And then we do a video recording of that consumption that takes place. So not only does the device know what pills are dropping and it is coding that and it's storing that information for clinical dashboards, but then you actually have the recording that's can be leveraged for clinicians as well as, more importantly, can be leveraged for caregivers or loved ones in the home. And the caregivers and loved ones in the home, those are the ones that do the majority of the interventions. It's not going to be doctors, it's not going to be nurses, and it's not going to be pharmacists. It is the families that are in the home or loved ones that may be in different states that know what's going on, and they altered the trajectory of care because they're the ones that are actively managing what's happening with mom, pop, or your children or
Man, those were some great questions. And honestly, I feel like, Charles, you're swinging Happy Gilmore style here, knocking in some big hole-in-ones, because, like, you're covering a lot. I mean, honestly, it's like you're this caregiving assistant. Really, that's what you're talking about. You're providing a caregiving assistant in the home to look after that loved one, to look after that one who's maybe taking a lot of pills. And you're also knocking it out of the park. I mean, by patients for patients. I mean, also, like, it sounds like by pharmacies for pharmacies. You know, like, what a product. I mean, it's super exciting. When you're going to market, are there specific use cases in terms of like diseases, or again, like how are you thinking about that?
That's a great question. And again, the check's in the mail for both of you. So the go-to-market strategy where we started with heart failure. And the reason why we started with heart failure is because they're on multiple medications. They're exceptionally costly from a hospitalization and ER perspective. So we went live with a Medicare Advantage plan in Northern California, started with heart failure patients. And our initial hypothesis was that if we could have a result of a 20 or 30% reduction for hospitalizations or ER visits, that would be absolutely knocking it out of the park or getting the hole in one. And what we did over a 12-month period is we had an 80% reduction in hospitalizations, 80% reduction in hospitalizations with these heart failure patients, and the health plan saved nearly 70% of the dollars spent. And that was simply because for the first time ever, they were stabilized on their medications. They knew somebody could care for them because we have asynchronous video messaging. So you had interventions happen when people deviated their behaviors. Some of them went out on the weekend. They stopped taking their medications. So we reminded them how important it was. Some of them didn't know that they could take their diuretics in the morning, and they didn't want to take them at nighttime because they would have to go to the bathroom multiple times. So a lot of the interventions were basic drug education and behavior modification to help them improve their quality of life. But by improving their quality of life, you lower the total cost of care. You prevent the hospitalizations and ER visits that are preventable, but nobody knew what was going on in the home. And what this does is it brings all that information into a single dashboard so both patient and providers can thrive within their setting.
That's cool. And those numbers are staggering. I mean, like 75 to 80%, like, in reductions of hospitalizations, that's going to be appealing, I think, to any potential listener who's wanting to find a solution like that, because clearly you're talking about big financial savings when it has those sort of numbers involved. What about, like, again, this is for anyone watching, a fairly large device, like, so primarily for the home setting, if you're out in the go, is there like an app or something that goes with this?
Yeah, that's so the device is the size of a coffee machine. So it fits strategically in the kitchen, but we didn't want it to look like a medical device. So you can put different skins on it. You could arrange it according to how your home decor is. So the fit and the size of the setting of the device can be in the kitchen, can be in the bathroom. It's at a 45-degree angle. So we only record your head or above. But if you're on the go, let's say you're feeling great. So you have heart failure and you're stuck in the home for several months. Now you're doing well because your blood levels are where they need to be and you're feeling active. So the mobile app has a travel mode. So the folks that do travel or they do go out and about, they'll be reminded on their phone that you can dispense the medications directly in the device and put it in a to-go. So if you're off, gallivanting around the area, you're going on a picnic, you're traveling, you have that option. And that's what makes the flexibility of this device, I think, good for the folks that do want to travel or they do want to do more.
Perfect harmony there. You got like this. Yeah, I think like for anyone, again, you got to check this out. You got to go to the HiDoHealth.com website and see this thing because the way you're describing there is like a really designed device. So like maybe you can tell us just a little bit more about like, so you've put a lot of thought into that design aspect.
We're talking. I just got a notification. So for anybody that can see on video or podcast, I'm 2 hours over my medication. And I just received a text message. But what's interesting about this is that if I miss my medication, the behavior modification that comes in is that this is a cascading text message. So my wife will ask me, well, you missed your medications. What's going on? Well, I'm in the middle of a podcast, so we're busy right now. But I need to make sure some of those mission critical medications are taken when they're supposed to be taken, because in your blood work, you have pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. And it's extremely important that some medications are critical to taking, because what if I have seizures, or what if I have another ailment that takes me to the ER room or takes me to the hospital? So there's elements throughout this device that have been integrated, again, based upon what patients said, what providers have told us, so then we can start stabilizing people in the comfort of the home. And a lot of people now, I think, are really focused on aging in the home, and this can just complement some of their efforts and some of the burden that's already exists from a caregiver perspective. And we can continue to enhance, we can continue to up the software, which makes it very, very exciting for multiple conditions, even outside of heart failure.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the look of the product, just because it does look like it would fit within the kitchen or like the home. Very nice. It's sleek. It's modern, right? It almost looks like it could be a fancy espresso machine or something like that. I'm cracking up looking at it. And honestly, until you said something before we started recording, Charles, I did not think that was some sort of medication dispenser. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't want to be reminded that they're sick. So if you can create a system where that they have to go to it on a regular basis and they can get information out of the system and they can utilize it to get information, whether it's drug information, whether they want information about from a clinician. So since we have asynchronous video messaging, they can get their information on demand. So instead of waiting for somebody 30 minutes, an hour, and having to physically go to an office, if they just have a message waiting for them, and a lot of stuff is already done through telehealth, people have to wait and schedule an appointment. Well, what if you don't have to wait and schedule for an appointment? What if you can just ask a question, it goes to the clinician, when you go back to the device, that answer is waiting for you, and you can go back and forth. I think there's a different way we can interact with care, but we need to have the devices that is there, that it can be the single source of truth to augment that approach.
Honestly, you're singing like this whole thing around the patient, by the patient, for the patient. I mean, that comes to the design aspect. What about in terms of like, if you're a provider or a payer and you're listening today and you're thinking, right, okay, this sounds amazing. How do I get one of these in my patient's home? Like, what does that look like? Where are you on that journey?
Yeah, this is, we contract directly with payers. So if it's a Medicare Advantage plan or a special needs plan, or if it's a pay center, we directly contract with them. So if you are a provider, you're a clinician, and you have patients that qualify that may have heart failure, maybe they're hypertensive diabetics, maybe they're even folks with mild to moderate dementia, where they cannot recall whether or not they take their medications, this would be great for them. And I would talk to your health plan, because the majority of the cost really is around these types of patients that go to the hospital and the ER on a regular basis. The folks that can actually stabilize their disease states based upon the medicalization. So go to your payer, go to your chief medical officer, chief financial officer, let them know that a product does exist that can enhance your patient's well-being in the comfort of their home.
And how would the patient or the doctor, right, or physician, how would they go about that today? I mean, is this something that they can start prescribing or giving to their patients right now?
So the fantastic part of this is that there's no prescription involved. This is simply just a device that they're enhancing the relationship of provider and patient in the home. So providers no longer have to guess what's going on with their patients. And if you ask patients that attend, they'll tell their providers that they're actually in fact take their medications when in reality they're not, because they feel embarrassed or they feel shamed. So imagine a provider saying, you know what, Kyle, you know what, Richard, we know that you're not taking your medications on a regular basis. That's okay. But I'm going to provide you a device to help you help yourself. And I can give you this and provide this at zero cost. And because it's zero cost to you, I'm just concerned about your health and well-being. I can't support you because I'm within a clinic or I'm within the hospital, but now we can support you remotely in the home. And that's what this device does. It completely alters the way we care for people.
Man, that's another hole in one there. I mean, honestly, if anyone listening now doesn't want to have one of these, I'd be amazed, because there's just so much value being brought to the table here. Just to kind of hit home again, though, on that point that Kyle was making, like, if I'm listening and I'm a payer or even a provider, like, what does that look like for getting a process? Is it literally going to your website and signing up? How do you go about actually getting one of these in the patient's home?
Yeah, you can either go to our website, and it has been revamped, so please visit our website, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just look up my first name, Charles Gelman. Either way, get in touch with us. We'd love to partner with you. Our goal really is to impact as many patients' lives as possible. We're funded by both the NIH and the NIA, which is the National Institute of Aging. We have a publication that's going to be coming out soon in the Journal of Medical Internet Research, which establishes that patients with mild to moderate dementia have 100% in-clinic usability and feasibility of this device. So as crazy as that sounds, people with memory issues are capable of not only setting up the device, but doing medication consumptions. And we tested them from a 5-minute to 30-minute range. Over a period of time, every single one of those dyads were successful. So the ability to help manage these chronic, high-cost patient populations is possible right now. So please reach out to us on website or LinkedIn. We'd love to talk to you.
So, Charles, it sounds like you've made some incredible progress here with your business, your product, your technology, and it sounds like this is out and available to people today. Is that right?
That's correct. Please reach out to us. We'd love to have a discussion.
Was that some sort of, like, did you have to go through that whole FDA process? Was there like a 510K type of process here with the technology as well?
So this is a 510K Class 1 exempt device.
Okay.
So it's cool. It's not the same type of medical device FDA approval that's typically needed for other things. And they classify them in specific designations based upon the impact on the patient and some of the preceding works that have been involved.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, it sounds like you moved pretty quickly through the development of your technology and into the market here. And now here you are, you're on the market, you're providing your technology and your robotic platform, AI platform to patients around the world. What about the next, 12 to 18 months? What does that look like for the company?
Well, in the very near future, I'll be in Boston towards the end of April to early May. And then we're also attending AHIP, which is a health plan show in Las Vegas, as well as several other shows. So we'll continue to get the word out about the HiDo device and presenting, being on panel speaker discussions. So the next 12 to 18 months is going to be a lot of on the road showing people what's possible, because most folks aren't aware that this technology exists. And by increasing the awareness and getting the message out, I think we can really help a lot of folks, as well as pushing out publications that I believe that are going to be very newsworthy around Alzheimer's and dementia research, just because most of those folks don't have a whole lot from a technology standpoint in the home. So I'm pretty excited about getting a lot of this information. Nothing has been published yet. So once things get published and once more of the news is out there, just creating awareness around HiDo. And
cause for excitement, because I'm excited listening to all you're doing, and I think the future is definitely bright. And for anyone who wants to learn more, I think one of the coolest things you have on your website is this white paper, which really just maps everything out so clearly. So highly recommend anyone going across to HiDo Health. But Charles, listening to this today, I'm again excited for the future. So can't thank you enough for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I appreciate it, Kyle, for having me on today. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with your audience.
Awesome, Charles. Well, hey, another huge thank you to our guest today, Charles Gelman, co-founder and CEO of HiDo Health. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into another episode of the MedTech Impact Podcast. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn. Until next time, keep innovating.